All right, welcome back. We will call to order the work session of the Kent County Board of Commissioners. Second item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone for public comment this morning? The clerk has seated the podium, and if anyone wants to come forward, I see none. So we'll move to agenda item 3. It's our great pleasure to have our county clerk and register of deeds, Lisa Posthumus-Lyons, and her team here this morning. So I will, for the purpose of the annual report, so I will hand the floor over to you, Madam Clerk.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and members of the commission. This is my annual report for the Kent County Clerk and Register of Deeds office. And I remind you, this is focused on the calendar year 2025. It's always kind of difficult to get this far into the next year and still be focusing on just the previous year without letting some of that creep in. So we're very mindful to keep this focused on 2025, and you can stay tuned for next year sometime about 2026. As you know, my office handles a wide variety of important functions in county government. Certainly not sexy, but almost at every major milestone in someone's life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We safeguard our vital records. We oversee elections within our county clerk's office, and we are the clerk of the circuit court within the county clerk's office, and we are a combined office with the Register of Deeds. About half of Michigan's counties have decided to combine those constitutional offices into one, and so that's the way Kent County operates. We have a tremendous leadership team that I'm simply so proud of. They're here with me today. And we're all complemented by the frontline employees, members of both the UAW and the TPOAM, who join me every day in serving our constituents, voters, and our customers. First, we're going to start out with vital records. And this slide here will give you a glimpse into the number of new records we filed in 2025 compared to the previous 6 years. The green will indicate that we've had an increase, the red a decrease from the prior year. Things to note, birth, marriages, and deaths are all slightly trending upwards, and we saw a huge increase in our CPLs issued. But kind of a caveat with that, however, is that the majority of those were renewals. So if you look to 2020, you'll actually see a huge jump in CPLs from 2019. It's renewal time from that. So that kind of explains a lot of that. And as far as total transactions, that number continues to increase to 98,500, up from 97,782. So in addition to these new records that we're filing and maintaining, those are requests for copies, certified copies, and other transactions. Moving on to our elections division. We have 3 or 4 elections in Kent County every single year. And that's actually not really the norm throughout the state. There's many of my colleagues who sometimes will go through the entire odd year without an election. But given the number of jurisdictions we have, our cities, our townships, our taxing entities that we have here in Kent County, we have an election at basically every opportunity. In 2025, we had a number of school districts that held elections in May. We had just over 150,000 of our voters eligible to vote in that election, and the turnout was 17%. The August primary in 2025 was super small, probably the smallest of my entire tenure, with only Grattan Township and Cedar Springs participating. 22% of the voters in those jurisdictions cast their ballots in that election. And then the November election covered most of the county because we had the Kent ISD millage, along with municipal general elections in the state. So Kentwood, Granville, Cedar Springs, Lowell, and East Grand Rapids had their municipal elections for their councilor boards. 21% voter turnout in that election. You'll notice there's no early voting statistics here in 2025 because we're only required to implement early voting for state and federal elections. And so that means you'll definitely notice some statistics going into 2026 for my next report, but we have nothing to report on that this past year. We'll go on to the Register of Deeds office. So I always like to remind the board that activity in this office speeds up or slows down just depending on the economy. So as the economy goes, so too does that office. When interest rates are low, we'll see a lot of activity, buying and selling property, refinancing mortgages, things like that. And if you recall, in 2023, we hit a 24-year record low for our recordings. However, 2024, and we saw again in 2025, they begin an upward trend, certainly not back to where it was, but they continue to rise. And I want to point out these numbers truly impact our fiscal health here in the county. Every recording that we take in is charged by, this is statutorily charged for $30, and $5 of that is retained within the county for the Register of Deeds Automation Fund. We kindly call that the Tech Fund, because the purpose of that is to help Register of Deeds offices utilize and innovate based on technology. So that's what we use that fund for. Then the remaining money from those recording fees goes into the general fund. So it really is kind of good to see those numbers go in the green. We've used our tech fund for things like our software system that we use for property and vital record management software. We use it for things like, we do a flyover. We partner with the county general fund and our local units to do a flyover for GIS and mapping, which is very helpful, not just for our purposes for real property, but the sheriff's office and things like that. So that fund is kind of a very critical function of what we use, not only to keep our office innovative and help make sure that our citizens are well served efficiently and effectively in the Register of Deeds office, but that we're able to kind of utilize that within the parameters of the law the best way we can, in the most expansive way we can. So we'll move across the street to the Clerk of the Circuit Court. And this is a very, very busy office with so much going on. We manage the files and every case filing for almost all the cases within the 17th Circuit Court. This first column here will show you the number of new cases that we opened each year, and in 2025, you'll see that number was 12,371, was down slightly from 2024. And then next is the number of actual documents we file within those new and existing cases. And that number, 2025, was 386,338, which was an increase of about 20,000 documents. Bless you. From 2024. I'm happy to report, and I'm very sad that Commissioner Steck is not here to hear this, but we did go live with our e-filing solution in October of last year. And so from October to December, we had 3,861 documents e-filed within our office. We're really excited to see that expand the longer that program goes on. And then the next figure you'll see is really why we're excited about e-filing. Last year, our staff pulled or retrieved from our file room or down at the archives near the museum archives. We've pulled 99,976 files for either a judge, our court staff, the media, or a member of the public. So with e-filing and the move to a paperless system, which we're in the throes of, those documents will then be available to the courts with just a few clicks, rather than us having to take a road trip down to the archives to retrieve those documents. Some of our major accomplishments in my office, when your whole existence is basically statutorily defined, I kind of bristle a little bit when I say it's a major accomplishment to do the job that I'm, simply just required to do. So we try to keep that in mind without, we do what we're supposed to do. We do it very, very well. That's the goal. Areas where we can find new innovations and efficiencies with such the lean staff and the lean budget that we keep, we are always looking out for those. But first, our team was excited to participate in the inaugural Community Fest from 2025. And we look forward to the two that we're doing this year as well. Outside of the outreach for elections, there's really not a lot of fun or neat opportunities to get out with the public and promote the clerk's office. Hey, everybody, get your birth certificate. Did you die? Do you need a death certificate? It's very administrative. So we really appreciate the ability to kind of partner with the entire county to promote the services that we do offer and for our office. And then next, it takes thousands of election inspectors, election workers, poll workers, whatever you want to call them. I often refrain from the later one. It takes thousands of election inspectors to make our elections go smoothly in each of our jurisdictions every year. And they all have to complete training and become certified to work an election every 2 years. So the county is legally responsible for training all of our election inspectors for jurisdictions under 10,000 population. However, we do provide training for larger jurisdictions if they choose to do that, just in the name of efficiency and consistency and congruity. So we're always undertaking election inspector training, which means we're interacting with a lot of election workers that we have to certify. We're conducting multiple trainings throughout the county. And we do this every year to keep our election inspectors certified. Last year, though, we did begin utilizing Meridian, which is the county's LMS learning management system, so that we can offer online training to our seasoned election workers who've been doing it, over and over, just to kind of help streamline the process, make it more efficient to those who've been in the game a long time, simply need to get that refresher versus going to the in-person one. So it's really helped it be user-friendly for our election workers and for our staff. And then if you'll see on the slide, you might wonder why the clerk register's office being closed on a random Wednesday in late August last year is an accomplishment. But I just want to highlight the significance here is that we were only closed for 1 day, and that was to reconfigure our entire office space for vital records and register of deeds. And this was necessary thanks to the installation of a new ADA accessible elevator that was initially meant to connect the parking garage to the Monroe level, and then over time so it wasn't going to impact our office too terrible much beyond construction, but then the vision expanded by the city to connect that elevator all the way up to the Calder Plaza. So our team was able to work collaboratively with the city and county facilities team, which have been fabulous to work with. They're responsive. They were as minimally intrusive as possible. So it was a really great opportunity to collaborate with our partners there, just to ensure that we were only offline to the public for that 1 day throughout the whole project. And IT is also to be commended as well on that. If you've ever gone through my office and you've seen some of the wires and some of the MacGyvers, the MacGrubers we've configured to be able to have some of our printers and things like that set up, it is a major accomplishment. So now that the construction is concluded, so we'll look forward to this in our next year's presentation, we're going to be able to reclaim some of that space. So we've got some options that we're exploring with Tim in terms of what's going to make the most sense for the time that we're likely to be here, hint, hint, in this building. Finally, our team in the Circuit Court Clerk's Office deserves tremendous recognition for their work, along with the Circuit Court leadership team over there, for the successful implementation of our e-filing and our ongoing implementation of Operation Paperless. The goal of the project is to move to a paperless system by expanding the ability of those litigants to be able to file civil cases electronically. So when you refer back to the numbers that we shared, based on the tens of thousands of cases we open and the hundreds of thousands of documents we file each year, it requires an enormous physical storage space and staff time to retrieve those files. So as we move to that paperless system throughout this process, which is something that should have occurred long ago, but after waiting and waiting and waiting for the state on this issue, court leadership, my staff have really took the initiative to complete the endeavor, because our county, our users of our court deserve no less. So we're really grateful for the initiative that was shown to continue to move forward in this effort. And I'm truly, truly grateful and appreciate the financial support from this body. You understand the importance of innovating our court, in this modern era, being the fourth largest county in the state, understanding the magnitude of the importance of having a 21st century court it's not lost on me, and so I'm really grateful for that support going forward. Shout out to our Chief Deputy Circuit Court Clerk, Amy Doring, who was recognized by Equivant, which is one of our vendors for our case management, file management, in this article highlighting her work on the project, and it's very well deserved. Looking ahead, and again, talking about right now and beyond, we continue to work to make all of our services more efficient and effective and user-friendly for our customers. So that means in our clerk and vital records, we're expanding more service options online as the ability presents itself and in person. So for instance, we're exploring the ability to file our business registrations online. And something that's very, very near and dear to my heart, the ability to obtain certified records, your certified birth certificates and things like that electronically, not a physical paper copy. And again, I caution folks to be like, well, duh. And it is kind of a no-brainer, but it's when you're dealing with maintenance of vital records and such, it's a little harder to kind of get your foot in the door to technology and those abilities, because there's kind of a hesitance. It's not on investing in the technology. It can be a delay because you have to bring a comfort level to the people that would provide these services, like my colleagues throughout the state, that it's okay to innovate. It's okay that, this signature, while it's not, in pen from the person, it's still just as legitimate as it would have been, written with a feather quill in 1882. So it's just kind of getting everybody's minds wrapped around that. And then, because if there's no demand, there's no supply. And so it just drags on a little bit longer than you'd like. So we're really excited about those efforts going forward. I've talked for several years about bringing fingerprinting to the office to create a one-stop shop for CPLs. I've put that on hold based on whatever we do with this new building, because the vision was to have the little sheriff's office enclave in the new building as well. And so they would be able to provide the fingerprints. So we're kind of, before we go headlong investing into that short term, I'm just kind of keeping the long term in mind for now. And then for elections, I am a member of the evaluation committee for the next round of voting equipment. And as you know, that continues to be on our minds, and we're not excited to purchase it immediately, but we know it's coming. And we're just very grateful for the attention that you guys, this board, has provided. Adding it to your legislative agenda is truly a sign that it's not just my office that's gearing up. Kent County is walking, in lockstep, the same, going in the same direction in preparation for when that new equipment will be needed. So We continue to work with fiscal services to bring financial requests and updates to the board as those timetables become clearer. Additionally, we have election results going back to 2002 in our online database, and we're working to expand that data to include pre-2002 results for more historical records available online. In the registrar's office, we're updating self-service online options and exploring the ability for individual customers to record their land records via e-recording. Right now, we have our title companies utilize this. That's the majority of our recordings come through e-recordings. But again, as we move forward into a technology-based era, this is something that a service we'd like to offer to our individual customers as well. And then I mentioned work is ongoing to expand project paperless in the courts. Our civil cases are 100% paperless since last April, 2025 April. And this year, 2026, our appeals are moving to paperless. So the process keeps rolling and the project continues. And then one area I want to continue improving upon is just being proactive in our communications from this office, using social media effectively, and just doing those outreach. We pride ourselves in doing this in elections area, but I think we can always improve. And I think that might even be collaborating more with our county's communications team as well. I think they can be a resource for us as well. So we're always looking to improve in that area. With that, I will just open it up to any questions you all might have and go from there.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That was very efficient, and we appreciate that very much. I'm going to also say that given the timing, we'll do like 20 minutes max for us to keep the clerk on the hot seat, so we'll try to wrap by 10 o'clock. So questions for the clerk?
While we wait for
Yes.
questions, I do want to point out that some of the handouts that we're providing our public, we've talked about Fraud Notify before to this body. We continue to promote that. So if you ever want to, these handouts for your constituents, we have a Kent County Voter Guide, both in English and Spanish. We're happy to help provide those to your constituents as well, and just how to get involved in elections.
Perfect. Commissioner Bujak.
Thank you, Chair Green. Question, first of all, thank you for all you do with the office there. You said you're converting over to electronic files. Do you have equipment to do that? Do you scan documents here, or do you have it done outsourced?
Yeah, you want to come up and take some of that? The answer is yes. That's part of the process, is making sure that everything is configured to accept e-filing, but that doesn't mean that we can just kind of cut off paper filing, which we do. We do a lot of scanning and as we're able to, but I'll let you kind of expound upon how we go about with microfiche and
Microphone.
scanning.
So on January 1st of 2025, we proactively started scanning all of our civil new filings, whether that would be a new case or a new document filed in an existing case. As for back scanning, which I think might be the question with all of the existing files and what we're going to do with those, we work on those when there is time, and money. And we are actually at a point right now where we're feeling a little bit of reprieve from not having to file paper. I have 4 staff who work full-time, literally filing paper. And with civil being fully paperless now, we can work on back scanning. So we do have some files that are part paper, part electronic. And as needed, the court will request us to back scan, and we will happily do it for them. High-profile cases, cases that go on for many years, et cetera.
And the reason I asked that question is I worked at GE Aviation, and we went through the conversion of all of our paper documents to electronic files. We started in 1998, and it was about 2020 when
Yeah.
we got there.
We looked for a quote to get our microfilm converted and to see how much it would cost to backscan everything. And I mean, we're approaching $1 million based on the number of papers we have. So it's We'll ask for that later.
Thank you, Commissioner
Yeah,
Bourget.
it does.
Oh, go
It
ahead.
kind of does
Madam Clerk.
just, as people continue to e-file more and more, it does kind of have this pressure valve released a little bit to provide us the time to do that back scanning so that everything can become fully digital, and fully scanned. It's just a thing of time and money, and so you prioritize what has to get done, what needs to get done, what should get done, what we'd like to get done, before everything else is obsolete and we have to start over.
Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. I found it really helpful to see how you divided up all the FTEs. And my question is just about elections. I know you've talked before about additional work created by different election laws. Has that FTE number increased in order to deal with it, or have you just gotten so much more efficient? What's the story?
We have, what we've done is kind of beg, borrowed, and stole from other areas in our office. Jerry's pretty poker-faced about it, but we've had, due to efficiencies in e-recording, increases in e-recording, things like that. In the deeds area, we've brought a employee position over to our elections division. We've worked with HR to reclassify, to increase the description to better reflect duties and responsibilities from maybe a clerk 2 or a clerk 3 to MPP. So we're always monitoring that. I think right now our staff level is appropriate. But I will say, a lot of that is because we chose as a county to not centralize our early voting process. And so if that would have been the case, we definitely would have had to add staff, we would have had to figure out how to accommodate such a responsibility. But because we have that run at our local units, that wasn't something we had to take on.
Okay, so seasonally, you're able
Yeah,
to adjust for now? Okay,
yeah, yep,
Great.
I would say so.
Great, thank you for that explanation.
And again, that's with what we've got now. So it's always, like I said, we are always being mindful of, well, we could do this and do that and do this, but what do we have to do? Where's that threading the needle between, doing well and doing more that's appropriate versus tipping the scale to where it's maybe financially not as necessary at this point. So I'm always mindful of that. So when I do come to you for funding, just know that it's been very much deliberated. We're not superfluous, I guess I should say.
Commissioner Pacla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Speaking of funding, one of the slides that's in our deck that we got is about the budget. And
Yes.
I'm curious, there's a lot of variation in expenses from year to year, right? I mean, we see
Yes.
the expenses from '24 where we had a lot of elections.
Yep.
Exceeding, almost double what we had in the year prior to it. Can you talk a little bit about how you all handle that
Yeah,
whack-a-mole
the-
of what's necessary and
The
what that
waxing and the
baseline- yeah,
waning?
Exactly.
Well, it's actually, it has been kind of difficult, in terms of kind of nailing Jell-O to the wall, especially with all the change. So it's not just, are we gonna have an election? And if we do, who's it gonna be? How big is it? What do we have to plan for? Because that's how our fiscal team operates. But we've really been able to, and especially because, as you guys have seen over the last couple of years, what is referred to as expenses and expenditures on our end is really, so it looks like we've increased our spending, threefold or whatever. Those are really reimbursements coming in. And so, to their credit, Fiscal Services has been awesome. I feel like we're kind of finally operating on the same premise. And so that's been very, very helpful. In terms of the waxing and waning, We just have been going back to the last, we'll go back the last several, elections. And it did get challenging too, because when we went to the calendar year, fiscal year, down to the October 1 fiscal year, so that kind of shortened, it was a little bit challenging, but we know there's going to be an election. We know roughly what those expenses are, and then we just use past history and, from those like elections, so a May election in an odd year, we'll kind of, and then what we're seeing and hearing on the ground in terms of needs or wants out in the community, what people are talking about to kind of forecast that a little bit. I think we've been doing really, really well, and I don't think this year we had to go before our budget review team and ask for money to print our ballots.
That's great.
So that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other question that I had, you mentioned very briefly that the voter's guide is available in other languages. Could you talk a little bit about sort of what that experience is of trying to identify forms and information in the many languages that are spoken here in Kent County, and sort of, is there technology that's helping with that? Is it people? How are we dealing with the need to do that?
Right now, we kind of focus on Spanish because that's like the largest block of second language besides English. We don't, to be truthful, we don't have a huge clamoring necessarily, but we're always trying to make sure that what we do have is available. We will provide translation services if needed for people who come into the office and can't speak, and so we do. It's a reactionary thing, because it just simply hasn't necessitated much more beyond like being able to provide these things in English. And statute requires, if we have a certain percentage of population that speaks a certain language, we will have to print our ballots in a certain language. We will have to provide all those election materials in a certain language. We just haven't hit that threshold yet.
I don't have anybody in the queue. Are there others? Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Green. I'll try to be quick so I get back to the good graces of the chair. So just two questions. One's just basically a yes or no. The August primary, is it ever going to be moved to May?
Yes.
Thank you. So.
No, I'm sorry, yes, May. Because it was starting to be June. We wanted it to be June, but then early voting impacted Memorial Day weekend. So the goal was June. It has moved to May. So yes, the answer is yes. When? I don't know.
Okay. So I think the most important thing with AI out there now, I've read a brief article. One of the huge threats right now are threats to the private information that hospital has about patients. And why AI is trying to get that is they can feed that into their AI to find that next cure for cancer. But they need a database, so they're doing that. So hospitals are spending a lot of money just protecting that. So having said that, when you had said that we can get a birth certificate online now that's legit. I mean, to me, if you had someone's birth certificate, you could do a lot of damage. So what are our protections? I appreciate the housing fraud, but all of that,
Right.
it's only going to get worse
Correct.
with the more AI and the bad individuals out there.
And that's why we haven't just pulled the trigger and gone full-blown e-certified documents, because we don't know yet. And this is the beginning of that. This is the beginning of that conversation, to make sure that it is something that we can protect and safeguard for our people. And in the same way we have the certified birth certificate paper, how do we do that? This certified, secure, because it is, I think it's called security paper. How do we do that in an electronic fashion? And so really, like I said, this is the beginning of the conversation. I don't know if any other counties are doing it yet, but I do know other counties were just exploring it. So yeah, it's something that's first on our mind, and if it's not something we can do, if it's not something I'm confident that we can do in a secure fashion that will protect and safeguard our residents, it's not something that we'll pursue. But it's actually, I mean, this is kind of born from, I think was it Commissioner Vonk, I think, back when he was on the board, called me on, like, right around Christmas, they were boarding for a cruise and forgot their birth certificate, and how do we provide that kind of, because it seems obvious that I could just email you your birth certificate. Well, for certain reasons, you can't. So how do we make it so you can, and go from there? But yeah, so going back to the primary though, I don't know if it will happen right now. The change, it does get, it's interesting because I think it's got mass consensus from both parties. But then you're also dealing with other stakeholders who are dealing with when they go on the ballot and how often they can, come before the voters. So things like that, because part of that is also election consolidation, which would, you get rid of the August and move the primary to May. Well, then the question is, do you add that third election? Because right now we have 3 election dates that are the option. So that's where it kind of gets caught up in the do or don't. So.
Well, thank you for your advocacy, not just here, but statewide, and here in Akron, so.
Thank you.
And, if we have 2 political parties in consensus, we don't want anything.
Something must be wrong.
I don't have anybody in the queue. I had a couple of quick questions for myself. The first, you talked about it a little bit, Madam Clerk, but can you give us an update on how you have reacted to and what your experience has been with the changes to the voting laws, like Prop 2 constitutional amendment, and then more recently this kind of, ballot without application process? I know you all guys are always going to follow the state law as it's presented, but have there been growing pains? Are you feeling like that's getting a little smoother? Is it still, fits and starts?
Implementation is going, it's ongoing. It was very difficult at first, but we've been able to really hone in on what needs to get done for all these changes, particularly, the 2020 or the 2018 proposal. I mean, that's really, it is fully implemented, dealing with no reason absentee voting and automatic voter registration. I will say I am concerned. This is probably more philosophical. The more we get to compulsory or automatic engagement, the more it could open up room for error. But they do get corrected when they're found out. And, so we've been able to adjust to that well. We've actually been able to adjust to the other constitutional provisions, particularly early voting. I think I will say that has been a real success so far. And again, it's only been one cycle that we've undertaken in-person early voting. But I think it's something that's working well. It's costly, it's a lot of logistics, but the voters are responding to it well, and so are our local clerks and our election inspectors. So I'm really excited to see how that continues to move forward. And as far as application-less absentee voting, that was and remains my main concern. The thing that I think is the most problematic of all the changes, simply because what we had in Michigan before, where before you even get a ballot, that signature is going to be verified, we no longer have. So it kind of flicked a little jewel out of our crown, but it makes the verification on the back end just that much more important. And so I always go back and I say, this is what the voters chose, and so this is what we've got to implement. The one thing, so stepping back philosophically, going to administratively, I'm very keenly keeping my eye on is what do the automatic ballots do to the return rate of absentee ballots? Or what does it do? Is it going to increase participation in our lower turnout elections? It's too early to tell, so I'm really kind of watching those to see what that impact has.
Yeah, no,
Very interesting.
I appreciate that, and as somebody who's a nerd about elections, I've had an interest too, that I think it'll be interesting to see this year with, a lot of contested primaries on both sides of the ballot, both parties, in August, does that participation increase or not?
Right,
with those
right.
voters, so. And then the other question, hopefully, is a simple one, but how can we be helpful to you, Clerk, as you're, going through your work? And I know you let us know, but we want to make sure we're giving you the resources that you need and to be effective and serve the residents. And you're one of the offices that is kind of frontline and front door for us, so.
I would just, I truly have, I have no additional feedback on how to be more helpful. This board, I'm very, very aware that maybe my colleagues and other boards don't have the luxury or enjoy the working relationship that we do between my office and the board and the administration. It's a blessing. So I really have nothing else to really add. I just continue to ask that you be receptive and collaborative when we need to be. And what I also like about this is you all have to use my office too. And and it's not just for elections, it's for other services too. And what I really like is when I get feedback from you. In terms of, okay, this doesn't seem right, or this could be better, we get stuck on this, or we really like this. So just that constant open door communication that we have, I treasure, I really do. And yeah, how can you be of help? Just keep doing what you're doing, and I appreciate the trust you place in me, no matter which party you're belonging to. I appreciate the responsiveness, and I appreciate the administration as well. It's just a good place to be right now, and our residents are fortunate to be in Kent County.
Thank you. I'll do last call on anybody else that has a question. I know, again, like all other departments, these guys are very accessible, so if you have something, you want to do. But anybody else, questions? I don't see any. We'll give the same feedback to you, Madam Clerk. Keep doing what you're doing and your team. I say this to, all of our county-wides, that you guys are a source of pride for us. We appreciate it. And thank you for doing the work, and thanks for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll go to commissioner comments. Any commissioner comments? I see none, so we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.